And I have another question for you. Ding Panda on YouTube is asking, being a metal world with magnetic properties or possible magnetic properties, what possible interferences are being planned for already?
Oh, excellent question. Okay, so we are really, really excited about the opportunity to discover that Psyche is magnetized. We don't know if it is, so we really planned the mission, the instruments. We worked with the engineering teams and everyone to really make sure that if there is a magnetic field in those rocks, we would be able to measure it. So we are planning on actually detecting the disturbances as small as they can be, that we can actually detect them. On the other hand, there is a possibility that Psyche would be very magnetized, and then it will form a cocoon around it, what we call a magnetosphere, which is basically the area around the body that is shielded by its own magnetic field and shields out all this space radiation and space particles. So all spacecraft are actually built with shielding on their instruments and on their hull, in order to protect them from space radiation and from extraneous magnetic fields. So we've already made sure that if Psyche is magnetized, we're not going to damage the spacecraft.
Okay, thank you. You both have been offering some great insights so far. We have some more questions to get to. Luis Pave on YouTube asks, when is the mission launching and on what rocket is it going to be launched on? Carver, do you have an idea?
Yeah, so the plan is to launch on October 5th. And it's going to be launching on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket.
Perfect, thank you. And Jacob on Facebook asks, what methods are used to determine the density of such a cosmological body like Psyche? Ooh, Rhoda Carver. Rona, do you want to take that?
So mostly how we determine the density of bodies that we see from very far away is actually to determine their size and their mass, and that gives you the density. And the size you can kind of get from radio observations, and Carver may want to add to that later. And the density and the mass you can determine by how this body interacts with other bodies next to it. So usually we just look at this body and how it behaves with respect to other bodies using telescopes for a very long time. This is how we do it for planets inside and outside of the solar system, and the same for asteroids. Carver may want to take more about the
Sure. One of the cool things about what we've been able to do with Psyche is the Arecibo telescope was actually used to send radar signals at Psyche and listen to how they bounce back. And from that, we actually have a pretty good idea of the size and shape of Psyche, at least at a broad scale right now. And that helps with figuring out the size for that density estimate, like Rona was talking about.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have another question from Luis Pavel. He wants to know what instruments are on board the spacecraft. Rona, would you like to try?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was saying, Rona, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, so we have three main science instruments. It's the magnetometer that measures the magnetic field. It would be measuring the magnetic field around Psyche and from Psyche, hopefully. We have the imager that will be imaging the surface of Psyche, characterize its surface, characterize craters, any kind of structures on it, geological structures. And we have the gamma ray neutron spectrometer, which is basically a detector that picks up particles that sputter off of the surface because of cosmic radiation. And that helps us determine the chemical content of the minerals that were sputtered from. So how much iron, how much nickel the surface has. And putting all of this together with the gravity experiment that will be using the high gain antennas and the radio, as Carver mentioned before, for those of you that didn't hear the beginning, putting it all together, we would be able to build the history of Psyche.
You both are doing such a fantastic job answering all these questions. I have one for you, Carver. Hydromic on YouTube asks, why are some asteroids made of metal, but others are not?
You know, that's a great question, and it's part of why we're going to Psyche. This will be the first metal-rich asteroid that we've gone and visited and explored in this way, and that's one of our questions is, how did it get to be this way? We have some ideas, some hypotheses going in, like maybe it was part of a larger planetesimal, where this was the core, and then there was some sort of rocky mantle on top that got stripped off in a giant collision, a giant impact. But we don't know if that's what happened or not, and that's why we're going there, is to find out.
And we have one more question for you from Iceland Animations on YouTube. Wants to know, how big is the Psyche asteroid?
Its radiuses are 250 kilometers. So it's about the size of the state of Massachusetts.
I was going to ask for like another reference point for people. Perfect. Thank you so much, Rona. Now, the questions are fantastic. Please keep sending them in. It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible to see that we're going to visit this mysterious metal-rich asteroid with Psyche. Now, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the mission.
Space